Today, June 12th, 2021, we undertake a new series. It is entitled Babylon's Fraudulent Array. Many Mustard Seed Chronicle studies have discussed the biblical theme of Babylon. But be it ever so clear, our position today will bring forth a new theme. It is to define our departure from her allure. Rooted in the theme of the Tower of Babel, Babylon means confusion. Ergo, our final appeal is to escape confusion. Yet, until the mustard seed advent, we had a limited concept of her evil. Since 1844 and the advent of the second angel's message, you know what that is, right? Babylon is fallen. We correctly and simply taught that Christians must leave the Sunday-keeping churches. Today we see that our flight is more complex and more complete. It is a social and cerebral challenge. It is victory over fear by use of Emmanuel's butter and honey. Correspondingly, we can proceed with leaving Babylon's gospel, which is the title of our first study of this series, 46.1. To leave, we must heed the call from Christ. In Isaiah chapter 51, verses 6 and 7, he exclaims, "Hearken unto me, ye that know righteousness, the people in whose heart is my law. Fear ye not the reproach of men, neither be ye afraid of their revilings." Oh, so I told you this is a mental, a social, and a psychological challenge that we must meet. Because we're going to face reproach and revilings. Let us speak more to this task of choosing the good and refusing the evil with the text that I alluded to in my opening comments. That's Isaiah chapter 7, verse 21 and 22. It says, and I quote verse 21, "And it shall come to pass in that day," points to a specific day, "that a man shall nourish a young cow and do sheep." Here we have symbolism. The young cow represents the total volume of the spirit of prophecy. It's young because it's newer. The two sheep refer to the Old and the New Testament. There's a young man, somebody that comes at the end of the gospel dispensation, and he begins to garner light and truth from those two sources. I'm repeating again, "And it shall come to pass in that day, and that a man shall nourish a young cow and two sheep. And it shall come to pass for the abundance of milk that they shall give, he shall eat butter. And for butter and honey shall everyone eat that is left in the land." You would think maybe that they went off on the other people on what would they call that now? A rapture. They were raptured. They went to a different country. They went to a different planet. That's not what it's referring to. The land represents the spiritual terra firma that our feet abide in. It's the place of our doctrine. Thus, it allows us to smoothly transit into the concept of Babylon. Let me refer you to Revelation chapter 17, verse 1 through 7. "And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of the abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Verse 5, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So this woman was Babylon. She was the mother of harlots. Verse 6, and I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Now get this. The Apostle John sees this woman and he's amazed at her gravitas. He's amazed at her image. He says, I saw her and wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. John was rebuked by the Spirit. John, you haven't seen her affliction on Jerusalem. Thus you better not marvel. Didn't Paul forewarn in Romans chapter 11, verse 25 through 27? When he said, verse 25, For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceit. That blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. So therefore, John, you should not have any admiration for the woman. You should not be intoxicated by her great mystery. Emmanuel is the deliverer that's going to come forth from Zion. His victory is in his spiritual diet, butter and honey. It gives doctrinal purification. Our focus today is to refuse Babylon's theological reigns. It is to show the full challenge of refusing the evil of our whoredom. Be it not mistaken. As Adventists, we are not Babylon. However, we suffer under the pollution of her filthy waters. Until the latest book, 7 Trumpet Luminescence, the full delusion of her deep conceit and its impression upon our doctrinal standards has never been uncovered or discovered. Why do you think that triunity of God, Emperor Constantine's fanciful creation, is so honored by all Christian churches? We cannot speak more on this fornicating woman now, except to make one key point for our study. She is drunk with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. Therefore, the historic Seventh-day Adventist point can be solidified. She began under the auspices of Rome some 1,700 years ago, the time when Rome began to persecute Christians. Rather than wonder with great admiration, we must escape. How many of you have this ethos about you? How many of you are yearning for the day of your departure? Not from her territory, the wilderness, but from her doctrine. Let's tie this study over to a doctrinal dissertation by referring to Revelation chapter 9, verse 12 through 14. Verse 12, one woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. A woe is a disaster, it's a hazard. So John, you're looking at her now, but you don't see the woe that's about ready to come upon her. And therefore, John, that may be the reason for your admiration. Continuing in the quote, verse 13, and the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God. Verse 14, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. Again, that's Revelation chapter 9, verses 12 through 14. So Babylon is in her heyday, but something is about ready to happen. A message from God gave a commission to now unfeather the four angels' message that has been bound in the great river of Euphrates. The river of Euphrates is Babylon's river, the place from which she gets her dirty sewer water. And that's where she drinks her toxic beverage. Jeremiah 51, verses 61 through 63 gives us further a commentary and insight. And Jeremiah said to Seraiah, when thou comest to Babylon and shalt see and shalt read all these words, then shalt thou say, O Lord, thou hast spoken against this place, to cut it off, that none shall remain in it, neither man nor beast, but that it shall be desolate forever. And it shall be, when thou hast made an end of the reading of this book, Jeremiah told Seraiah, that thou shalt bind a stone to it and cast it into the midst of Euphrates. We have a keen insight here from Jeremiah because it shows you that way back in yesteryear, the Lord predicted the decimation of Babylon. The time when the Lord is going to speak against it. And not only that, to cut it off. Let us seize upon that promise, because there's a day that she's going to be cut off. Don't be too premature in your admiration of her. It mentions the four angels that are bound in the great river Euphrates. Remember in Revelation 9, a message from the altar which is before God commissioned to the sixth angel to loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. There is a mathematic complexity to that number 4. Wouldn't you know it, because it comes from the book of Revelation. Let me just re-express the number 4 by saying 3 plus 1. That's another way to say 4. E.G. White tells us, as a help to our understanding, when she says, and I quote, This is our work. The light that we have upon the third angel's message is a true light. Not all in regard to this matter is yet understood and will not be understood until the unrolling of the scroll. But a most solemn work is to be accomplished in our world. Ellen G. White Testimonies for the Church, Volume 8, page 159. Like I told you, she references the three angels' message. Even though she anticipated greater light and truth, she failed to account for the four angels, thereby limiting to just the three angels' message. Let us expand upon the three angels' message by journeying to Revelation chapter 14, verse 1 through 4. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps, and they sung. I like that expression. It gives us a reality. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing for you. But it tells you that the 144,000 sung as it were a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders. And no man could learn that song but the 144,000, which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. Who are the singers of the new song that is sung in heaven? The 144,000. How did they learn their song? It said no man could sing, but evidently they had to learn the song after a magnificent event occurred in their life. An event that made them the first fruits. An event that coalesced that number under the auspices of Christ and his vicegerent. Revelation chapter 7, verse 1 through 4, gives us a greater understanding. And I read, after these things I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the winds should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. I want you to pay close and careful attention to the pronouns here. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees. Now here comes the pronoun that I want your attention and focus upon. Till we refers to as an ascending angel from the east, but he gives a commission that inculcates a plurality of people, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. So we read Revelation chapter 14, verse 1 through 4, and then we went back seeing that they were sealed to Revelation chapter 7 to see that exact action. And we've come to note that there's a plurality of people that have sealed them. And get this point, disciples, you must seal the 144,000 from an upper atmospheric perch. Thus you, second-person plural people, mustard seed Adventist saints, you are the we who seal. You too must teach them a song. They could only sing the song after they were sealed. Therefore, they had to learn the song, and it developed from within them by your ministry. To symbolically sing is to extend a heartfelt, joyous harmony of message. Some may be baritone, some may be soprano, some may be bass, but their voices harmonize together symphonically so that they could present this song. No one else in heaven or on earth can sing it. Why? Because none others have the commission. What is the new song that no one could sing? It's the fall. And I say fall, it's the cataclysmic disaster that happened to ancient Israel. And then it represents their rise to redemption. It's what the Lord promised in Matthew 23 when he spoke to Jerusalem. Yesterday you killed the prophets and stoned them that were sent unto you, but the day is going to come, you're not going to see me henceforth till ye shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Well, he represents this angel that ascends out of the east with his companions. Let us explore more of the historical context of their curse. I'm going to truncate this Deuteronomy 31 and 32 prescription from Moses, and I'll cite to you the verses as I go along. Verse 17 of chapter 31. Then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them. And many evils and troubles shall befall them, so that they will say in that day, are not these evils come upon us, because our God is not among us? Verse 18, and I will surely hide my face in that day, for all the evil which they shall have wrought, in that they are turned unto other gods. Verse 19, now therefore write ye this song, Moses. Now therefore write ye this song for you, and teach it the children of Israel. Put it in their mouths, that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel. Verse 30, and Moses spake in the ears of all the congregation of Israel the words of this song until they were ended. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 1. Give ear, O ye heavens, and I will speak. In other words, this message is not just for earthbound people, but it's for those extraterrestrials now that are relocated temporarily in heaven before they begin their evangelical work. Give ye ear, O heaven, and I will speak. And hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as the rain. My speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, and as the shower upon the grass. Because I will publish the name of the Lord. Aha, this has to be the Son of David, the one who preaches and declares his name. I will publish the name of the Lord. This is what your seal shall be. The publication, the understanding, the explanation of the identity of Christ. Because I will publish the name of the Lord. This is part of the song of the 144,000. This is the song of Moses and the Lamb. I will publish the name of the Lord. Ascribe ye greatness unto our God. Verse 18. Of the rock that begat thee, thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten God that formed thee. Verse 19. And when the Lord saw it, he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. You hear that, Black Lives Matter? I said, I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely. Paul would say conceitfully. John would say admirably. But the Lord says, were it not that I feared the wrath of their enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and lest they should say, our hand is high, and the Lord hath not done all this. And Moses made an end of speaking all these words to all of Israel. No one could sing it because all minds, even the Seventh-day Adventist church, were enmeshed in Babylonian white supremacy, the enemies of Israel in their high hand. Isaiah 10 called it their high look. They were thinking that Babylon, was favored by God. Even John was reprimanded for this false appraisal that caused him to marvel. Though they ruled Christian doctrine, they did so in this vain conceit. They presumed that God could never recover the souls of America's former slaves. They accordingly were the foolish nation, a conglomeration of all nations, a people who, by the mouth of Moses, are not really a people. Now you know it because you have learned his heretofore hidden song. This manifests the unrolling of the scroll mentioned by Ellen G. White. The four angels' message is unconcealed. It was buried in the Euphrates so that today we can recover Jerusalem from the tyranny of their American yoke. Thus I give you my first stanza to Moses' rap. We are not lower level primates of degraded humanity. We are not mentally inferiors, though we bow here on our knees. Christ loves our skin and features, though such make you ill at ease. We suffer by his Egyptian yoke. Such began our calamity. As Christ's fire tried gold refined, our souls shall be appeased when in the day of triumph we win God's liberties. Like the beasts and the elders in heaven, you could not sing the song. It was hidden until now as God's sinking stone that shall blossom in the 3 + 1 = 4 angels message. I came up with a new word that will help you to understand. I've been telling you about double entendre. Now the message goes to the next derivative, and we're going to talk about a triple entendre so that we can explain the messages that the Adventists are going to finish the gospel work with its declaration. I continue forward in Revelation chapter 14 and read verse 6 through 8 and 14 through 15. And I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. And worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. So who made that declaration? John said he saw another angel. So then in verse 8, we have the second angel. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud. A what? A white cloud is something that is in the upper atmosphere, something that has ascended, in our case, from the east. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man. Wasn't the Son of Man, was like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud. So he's a commander. This is Christ. Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. To understand more about Babylon, we have to stitch it in a way that no other three-angel messenger has ever done. We have to tie it to Hosea chapters 1 and 2. Now, we're not going to give you a thorough excursion. We've made this connection before. But today we find that it's useful so that we can understand the origin of Babylon. Now, when I say Babylon, I'm talking about the woman who is described as being enmeshed in whoredom. That should have relevance to us as we read Hosea chapter 1. The beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea. Now, Christ is the word of the Lord. That's another name for his identity. And the Lord said to Hosea, Go take unto thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms. For the land hath committed a great whoredom, departing from the Lord. Evidently, by this text, we see the beginning of Babylon's whorish behavior. So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim. And she conceived, I'm not going to read all of her children, she conceived Jezreel. Then we're going to read about Lo-Ruhamah. And after him, she conceived Lo-Ami. But it says, And she conceived and bare a daughter, and God said unto him, Call her name Lo-Ruhamah. For I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel. This was a sign that the Lord was going to persecute his people, the house of Israel. Not two-tribe Judah, not the so-called Jews. But I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. For Gomer, I want to emphasize, that's Hosea's commissioned wife. You ever have a commissioned wife? She is not a love interest. She's someone you're told to marry. For Gomer did not know that this is the word of the Lord. He didn't know that the word of the Lord, not making a reference to Jesus, because Hosea represents Jesus. Let's read it again. For Gomer did not know that I gave her corn and wine and oil, and multiplied her silver and gold, which they prepared for Baal. Now, it's just amazing that the Gomorrhean Christians are milk-fed Christians. They didn't know the difference between Christ and Jesus, so that they therefore thought that the lessons that they learned from Jesus' ministry were dictates not from a hidden, clandestine power that rested, abode, and spoke through Jesus, the word of the Lord, and did this speaking at the behest of the Father. They didn't know that. So their meat, their bread, and their oil, they didn't understand that these things came from Christ. That's why we have added meaning to this study of Hosea chapter 1. It says, it describes her ignorance. For she did not know that I gave her corn and wine and oil and multiplied her silver and gold, which they prepare for Baal. Therefore, you can understand John's confusion. He sees all this great wealth. Maybe he peered into Fort Knox and saw all those stacks of gold. Christ gave it to them. Their silver, the value of their U.S. dollar, Christ gave that to them. Yet they prepared it for Baal. Therefore will I return and take away my corn in the time thereof, and my wine in the season thereof. So if you think that some other prophet has unfolded to you the fruition of this study, then you can recognize your ignorance as well. He says, I'm going to take away my corn. So the doctrine of Jesus, which they have marched forward these past 2,000 years, that has made the Gomorrhean Christians great, it's going to be taken away. It's going to be refuted by careful scrutiny, by strong meat doctrine that re-examines the testimony of Jesus in the Word. That's why he says, I will return and take away my corn in the time thereof, and my wine in the season thereof. Thus, the wine we've proven irrefutably represents the testimony of Jesus. Matthew 26, he said, the wine in this cup is my blood. Drink ye all of it. It is a testament for me. So it is the New Testament, I believe, are the exact words. And now will I discover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and none shall deliver her out of my hand. It's important to emphasize here, this is a curse on Gomer. It's her devastation. It's her day of her fall. Christ is not going to marry Babylon, the whore that we just read about in Revelation chapter 17, because he's going to uncover her lewdness, which means the world is going to see that she's devoid of legitimate theological doctrine. She's naked. I will discover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and none shall deliver her out of mine hand. And I will visit upon her the days of Balaam, whereas she burnt incense to them, and she went after her lovers, and forgot me, saith the Lord. She forgot me. The antecedent to the me is pointed out to you. It's not Hosea. She didn't forget Jesus. She forgot me, saith the Lord. She ignored, as the gospel went through the Seventh-day Adventist ministration, with what Sister White termed the unrolling of the scrolls in the scriptures, they ignored the distinctions that were pointed out to them between Jesus and Christ. And being the pinnacle of Assyrian theology, it's a manifestation of their choice, the one that Paul warned them against. Be ye not ignorant, lest you be wise unto your own conceit. I wish I had more time to uncover the meaning whereby it says, I will visit upon her the days of Balaam. Balaam was the messenger that was sent to the false prophet Balak. He was hired, but he refused their hire. But he stood by their 7 burnt offerings. The 7 burnt offerings were the torment that they put on the children of Israel because Balaam was hired to curse Israel. The Lord says, and I will visit upon her the days of Balaam, wherein she burnt incense to them. And she went after her lovers and forgot me, saith the Lord. And in that day will I make a covenant for them. Now, wait a minute. There's a transition in pronouns that needs to be cited. He's speaking of her, of Gomer. But now he's speaking of his union, his marriage to her. Well, how unseemly is that? That Christ would repudiate Jesus' wife Gomer and then take her into his own embrace. The text that we read above shows to you that he says, I will utterly take them away. So this points to her day of decimation. But now, as we read, truncating this text greatly, but when you read it on your own more carefully, will see that the transition in pronouns is changed. And the her becomes they, becomes a plurality of people. And in that day, I will make a covenant for them. I will make them to lie down safely. Consequently, she cannot be the one that was persecuting the saints as they left Palestine 2,000 years ago, because these are people that are going to receive peace. I will betroth thee unto me forever. This is a message not to Gomer, but to her daughter, the one that fell under the auspices of her faithful prophet Jezreel. And I will betroth thee unto me forever. He's speaking of Ruhamah, in righteousness and in judgment and in loving kindness and in mercies. And thou shalt know the Lord. So the day is going to come when they're going to learn about Christ, not about Hosea. And they are going to be betrothed to him in judgment, in loving kindness, and in mercy, which shows that the covenant has to be making reference to Isaiah 55 when he talks about the covenant of David, the sure mercies of David. Adventism is not Babylon. We can't therefrom call her out. However, she is intoxicated by Babylon's beverage, her doctrine. Evidence. Adventists rebuke anyone of her members who extol Bible-revealed light that opposes popular Babylonian themes. This is her disorientation, for drunkenness is the adherence and comfort by false reality. Here in Hosea, she does not even know the source of her success. It didn't even come from her lovers. For example, she prays to whom? She prays to Jesus, but calls him Christ and God. Would not an actual drunk spew such babble? This she does by virtue of another intoxicant. The false fear that to attribute separate personage to Jesus and Christ and Father is to commit polytheism. There are other bedazzling doctrines, but the one of our central focus, the one that caused this entire buildup, envelops around marriage. as does Babylon, Adventists claim to believe in monogamy, that a married man is an adulterer if he has a mistress. Yet in their closets are many multiple sex partners, sometimes both male and female. They therefore are closet polygamists. When caught, their elders simply do a Jimmy Swaggart. Do you remember him? They cry and ask for forgiveness while they self-justify and cite David's successes. Ironically, only in such darkness do they become Davidians. But in this false humility, they insult God by asking to forgive a breach of Satan's rules. And this twist elevates Satan's judgments. That's why the Lord says he's going to correct Lo-Ruhamah with good judgments. Clearly, they know not to choose the good and refuse the evil. They reject Emmanuel's butter and honey. This is an eye-opener. And for those who, for the first time, are viewing my video, they need to forbear as we now wind down our study by bringing forth closing evidence. Psalms chapter 45, verse 1, 2, 6, 7, and 9 through 16. I'm going to read it all, then we're going to segment it so that we can explain it and understand it in a better way. My heart is inditing a good matter. A what type of matter? A good matter. I speak of the things which I have made touching the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. Thou art fairer than the children of men. Grace is poured into thy lips. Therefore God hath blessed thee forever. Now he's talking about the Moses. The antitypical Moses is going to do publishing. He's going to publish peace. He's talking about the one to whom he made reference to as the ready writer, the one that's going to declare the name of the Lord. He's telling you that his work is going to inspire the work of this ready writer. But then he switches, as we skip from verse 2 to verse 6, he makes a transition to making reference to Christ. Verse 6, he says, Thy throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of thy kingdom is a right scepter. Thou lovest righteousness and hatest wickedness. Therefore God, thy God, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. Automatically, this is anti-Babylonian doctrine because it shows that Christ received his promotion to be the word of the Lord, to have power of attorney because he was elevated above his other archangels, his fellows. God anointed him as such. Verse 9, King's daughters were among thy honorable women. Upon thy right hand did stand the queen in gold of Ophir. Hearken, O daughter, and consider and incline thine ear. Forget also thine own people and thy father's house. So shall the king greatly desire thy beauty. He's talking about the ready writer. For he is thy Lord. Didn't say he is your husband. He says he is thy Lord. And worship thou him. And the daughter of Tyre shall be there with a gift. The king's daughter is all glorious within. Her clothing is wrought of gold. She shall be brought unto the king in raiment of needlework. The virgins, her companions that follow her, shall be brought unto thee. When it says unto thee, he's talking about the ready writer. With gladness and rejoicing shall they be brought. They shall enter into the king's palace. Instead of thy fathers shall be thy children, whom thou mayest make princes in all the earth. Let's see, as we go back over this text, if we could break it down and make several points. This being the apex, the zenith of our study. He says, good. My heart is inditing a good matter. What is the good? Can we just ignore that term? We have to find out what is the meaning of good. What is the good matter that tugged at ancient David's heart? Again, I repeat, he said, my heart is inditing a good matter. I speak of things which I have made touching the king. It can only be applicable as good today, the day of Christ's corn and oil and wine. For this is the time proven to be the day when Paul's commission becomes the time of our perfection, whereby he said, strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. Therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Christ, let us go on unto perfection, not laying again the doctrine of eternal judgment. Reading in snippets, Hebrews chapter 5, 12 through 14, and chapter 6, verse 2. Should we invalidate this new light from Paul? Not so, for Christ affirms his theme when he says, and he supports this application of David's emphasis of the good matter. He says, in affirmation of the book of Psalms, all things must be fulfilled which were written in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms concerning me. Luke chapter 24, verse 44. Thus the good is our duty to abandon Gomorrhean, Babylonian whoredom and to know Christ. It is also to leave the principles of Christ and to accordingly discern of good and evil. It becomes a matter of highest theological extrapolation, therefore, that the text of David's indictment is to become our path of full doctrinal exodus from Babylon's whoredom. David's light is brilliant. He speaks of kings, virtuous daughters abiding with Christ. Can you imagine that? Did not the Bible say, I have not seen, ear hath not heard the marvels that the Lord has in store for us? Well, as we open up the book of Psalms, we could understand some of those marvels. He speaks of kings, virtuous daughters abiding with Christ at his pavilion. He has a special collection of saints for the benefit of his faithful disciples indeed. His gift is promised to be these virtuous Enochians whom David describes as honorable princes. In other words, it has become proven by the Mustard Seed Chronicle that over the past 6,000 years of human history, they, along with men, have been extracted from all nations. I know this seems fanciful because your mind has had a Babylonian twist. But notwithstanding, they have been taken from earth without ever seeing death and placed, not in heaven, but on the red cloud of Jupiter in Christ's temporary habitation. This has been done so that they may become our joy today. Yet this joy will never come to those who cling to Babylonian standards. One special woman, the prophetess, has a mother who stands at Christ's right hand. What does her mother, the queen, do? Like all who stand at Christ's right hand, she serves Christ behind the scenes and addresses his interests, those interests that he has in saving humanity. We can say no more. Her dad and her mother, during their days of empowerment on earth, were the king and queen of ancient Tyre, nearly 3,000 years ago. And they were lovers of ancient David. We find that in 1 Kings chapter 5, verse 1. She, the daughter, is encouraged to give herself in worship to the Son of David. What shall be her reward? The reward desired by all women. It is not to have multiple sex partners, the longing desire of all men, Babylonian or not, but she desires the gift of stellar children. Let's go over Psalms 45 and read verses 9 through 13. Kings' daughters were among thy honorable women. Upon thy right hand did stand the queen in gold of Ophir. Hearken, O daughter, and consider, and incline thine ear. Forget also thine own people. She's got people. She's told to forget. Forget also thine own people. And more suggestively egregious than that, if we were to understand this according to Babylonian theology, she's commissioned to forget thy father's house. Evidently, her father could not be Christ or could not be God. Verse 11, so shall the king greatly desire thy beauty, for he is thy Lord, and worship thou him. Thus the king whom David commissioned her worship must be a human from another human household. And the daughter of Tyre shall be there with a gift. The king's daughter is all glorious within. Her clothing is wrought of gold. She shall be brought unto the king in raiment of needleworks. The virgins, her companions that follow her, shall be brought unto thee. With gladness and rejoicing shall they be brought. They shall enter into the king's palace. Instead of thy father shall be thy children. He, accordingly, her father, must be a translated human like her. Otherwise, her father would be God, one whom she would not be encouraged by David to forget. Instead of thy father shall be thy children, whom thou mayest make princes in all the earth. No other time in human history, until the day of Babylon's fall, could this counsel apply. It applies in the day when we learn a good matter, when we learn to choose the good and refuse the evil. Virtuous and beautiful, but also glorified within. Her clothing being wrought with gold means that she is not corrupted with Babylon's doctrine. Such is both a literal and figurative statement of her outward glory. Obviously, she has mastered seven trumpet luminescence. But backtracking, to be glorified within has a different meaning. It acknowledges that she is without physical maladies or defects. No cancer, no COVID, no diabetes, no arthritis, no heart maladies, no tumors or cysts, etc. Her medical exam would be a marvel to modern medicine, even being 3,000 years old. Ergo, to be all glorified within, she must have consumed that which was denied to Adam and Eve, the tree of life. Thus, no other woman in history, not even Eve, is not just doctrinally, but physically comparable to her. And like all women, she wants to use her glorious womb. Being so glorified, we do not know how long the gestation of her children in her womb shall be. For us, of course, it is 9 months. But she has reversed Eve's sin and is the first one to be able to deliver a child after consuming the tree of life. She has reversed Eve's sin and may have a different constitution. Consider this as we read about her children. I'm referring to Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1, 2, 6, and 10. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. A brief comment. The rod comes out of the stem of Jesse. That manifests David is produced by Jesse above ground. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. Therefore, the branch is subterranean. It grows up from the earth, for a tree's roots are grounded in earth. And a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Spirit of the Lord, that's the Lord's oil, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. The Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. Therefore, if you examine the study, you have to ask yourself, do I have the Spirit of wisdom, of counsel, and of might? Do I know, as Paul admonished that we should know, how to choose the good and refuse the evil? The Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf, and the young lion, and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall feed. Their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like an ox. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. So this is not talking about the house of David. No, it's talking about the ensign. The ensign was when a son points you to his father's house. It's the address. So this ensign represents Maher-shalal-Hashbaz. We call him Ambazi. He, by his genetic and theological superiority, is activated to preach in the earth. He shall enlighten evil men to the folly of Babylon. Though the Son of Man shall legally engender him through the glorified daughter of Tyre, he, Maher-shalal-Hashbaz, by virtue of this advanced genetic engineering, also shall thereby be a root of Jesse as well, being the mustard seed's son. He who was a subterranean or underground Jew, Bazi and perhaps his brethren, the other sons of the prophetess, who will descend from the now glorified house of Jesse, shall rule the Gentiles. The wolves, the leopards, the calves, and the lions, the bears, et al. Did not David promise her, instead of thy fathers shall be thy children, whom thou mayest make princes in all the earth? This is David's reward to her. This is what makes her happy. But what about Vanette, my wife? She and I are one. Therefore, she's seated on the cloud along with the disciples and with me. Is she, though, dishonored in this prophecy? Of course not. David declared her to be my right hand. She, even amidst much controversy, shall have honor under me and over all the kingdom. For she was the first to, by my tutelage, extricate herself from Babylon's greatest folly. She was the first to receive from me and then to cherish the promise of my mistress, the prophetess. She taught it to Edie. She championed it to my parents, embarrassingly. And to boot, she has enforced all my doctrinal standards. I could have, by her Babylon escaping commission, taken a girlfriend. Since the time I revealed this doctrine to her, a period of nearly 30 years, I still can receive one while expecting her continued love. Abiding under Gomery and Christology, I have not had another woman in all our 40 years of marriage. I dare say, let the elders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and of Sunday-keeping churches make the same claim. So I have not dishonored my wife. We yearn that her honorable son, Dwayne, shall likewise join us in discipleship. But let it be resoundingly clear, the prophetess cannot eclipse her, Vanette's valor in the faith of this message and in the faith of Christ. Can you men win the support of your wives or girlfriends? Or do they, having received their joy already, their children, want to cheat you from your joy and, in Babylonian style, reduce you to a closet polygamist? Now is your chance to extricate your wives from such a Babylonian curse. And with that, I bring the study to a close.